start recording so I don't forget. And I'm going to share my screen, I think. Just have to figure out where that is. Here we go. And get our presentation going here. And like I mentioned before, please don't hesitate to ask questions in the chat. If I don't get to them during the actual presentation, along the way here, I will answer them at the end, and we'll have some time for questions and answers. And then if there are things that you want to ask, like that are a little bit more, oh, there are people in the waiting room. Admit all. All right. Hopefully everybody's admitted. I'll wait till they're all in here. Leaving people in the waiting room here, that's not very nice of me. All right. And I will be muting everybody too, so no worries if the dog starts barking or, UPS is coming to deliver something, because that's always exciting. All right. Admit. All right. Okay, so hopefully everybody is out of the waiting room now and back live with us here. Like I mentioned just a little while ago, I'm going to record this, so I'll be sending a link for it after the fact. If there are questions and things along the way, please jot them down or send them in in an email or something, but I will definitely be looking over those. And so we are doing your little lunch and learn gut check with Alo Health. And all right. So if you're meant to do that today, you're in the right place. Brief introduction of me. I'm Jen Borley, and you may recognize the name. I am married to Scott Borley for like 22 and a half years now. So he's at the tech, of course, the Dean of Business and IT now. And we have 3 very active boys. I can't say teenagers anymore because I've entered the world of being a mom of a 20-year-old, which is a little weird because I'm still 20 myself. So we have a 20-year-old, an 18-year-old, and 15-year-old, all boys. Definitely go through a lot of food in our house. We have 2 college-age kids. One is actually living on the La Crosse campus. The other one decided to do school from home the second semester this year. So we got a whole lot of college going on at our house. And my 15-year-old is actually in school as a freshman in high school. Never a dull moment at the Borley house. And then we have 2 dogs that are really excited that people are home all the time right now. And they're probably not going to like it when people return to work and other things. So besides being Scott's wife, I'm also co-owner of Alo Health, and I'm a registered nurse, traditionally trained in, oh, there's somebody in the waiting room here. Okay, good. Traditionally trained as a registered nurse, got bachelor's in nursing from Bellin College, master's from Gonzaga University as a nurse educator. And my big things about how I practice, of course, I practice holistically as a digestive health professional, so I don't diagnose, treat, or cure anything, but I love to support normal, healthy function. And big parts of my life are faith, family, and fun. So I tend to have a lot of fun in doing my work as well. So hopefully that comes across in this presentation. And if you're just let out of the waiting room, welcome. I do have everybody muted just because I know that most of you are working from home and life happens and dogs bark and things like that. So let's get started on digestion. All right, so different parts of parts of our presentation today. We're going to go over the parts of digestion and some anatomy and physiology, but we're not going to get too, deep in the woods per se. We're going to go over functions, of course, the importance of the parts and the functions in digestion, when things aren't right, what to look for, and some just simple things of how to help if you are experiencing some digestive upset. And then also go over a little bit more about what we do here at Alo towards the end. So the digestive tract, it's not just the stomach. We really have our mucosal membrane from our eyeballs to our anus, which just sounds so funny to say it, but that's the truth of it all. And all play a part in digestion. Within our digestive tract, there's 70% of our immune system, so that's kind of a big deal. 50% of our neurotransmitters are made in the gut, and 90% of the serotonin that we have is made in the gut. So of course, our digestive tract affects more than just how we feel physically. It affects how we feel emotionally, mentally, our brain clarity, things like that. So there definitely is a brain and gut connection. All right. So let's talk a little bit more about digestion. Before we even take a bite, before we put food in our mouth, we actually start the digestive process. And you think about when you enter a restaurant, or you're in the mall. Eventually you'll be back in a mall, I promise. But you smell different things. They do that on purpose because that stimulates your digestive processes to start. You smell that food, your saliva gets activated, you're seeing it, you're anticipating it. So that actually is the beginning of digestion. And that is the chemical process of digestion. In that saliva are really important enzymes. And we talk a lot about enzymes here at Alo Health. It's a big part of what we do. That saliva contains a few of those main enzymes: amylase to digest carbohydrates, protease digest protein, and lipase to digest fats. Those are the main ones. There are lots of little breakdowns and little particular ones as well. We're not going to get into the weeds on that, but it's a nice little overview. All right. Chewing. What did our parents always tell us to do? Or, specifically our moms usually, right? Chew your food. And that is vitally important. It makes a drastic change in how you are able to bring nutrients into your body effectively and avoiding added stress to your body. So chewing is mechanical, obviously. The technical term is mastification. So you want to make sure you're breaking down that food mechanically with your teeth. Now, during that process, you're also going to be having saliva join with it. We're going to cover saliva on the next slide, but chewing actually liberates enzymes from foods like vegetables and things that grow. Everything that grows, vegetables, fruits, grains, things like that, they are made with the enzymes in them. But if it's processed, because of needing to preserve it or keep it stable, keep it from rotting, things like that, enzymes are removed from those products. And that's why we focus on maybe supplementing with some digestive enzymes. But when you're eating that real food, that live whole food, chewing it thoroughly liberates the enzymes that help break it down. So again, you are removing some of that stress from your body having to contribute chemically by liberating those enzymes by chewing. And this is a big one that gets people's attention. If you suffer from a lot of gas, it could be you're eating too fast and you want to slow down, chew your food until it's cake batter consistency. And you may notice a big change in that after eating gas and bloating. I often say that I would really like to get a video of my dad eating to show people what not to do. Sorry, Dad, if you watch this sometime in the future, but he literally will sit with food in front of him, never put down his fork or spoon or sandwich, whatever it is, have one hand bringing the food to his mouth, hardly chewing it, taking a drink of whatever he's drinking and like washing it down. So it's an example of what not to do. And then if you can picture this, 77-year-old man who is maybe a little bit bloated in the belly, belching, things like that. I mean, you get the picture. Probably not a great example of how to feel really well. So enough about my dad. We talked about saliva, and that is so important. You see babies drooling, you see dogs drooling. Sometimes we drool because we just get really excited about something that we're going to eat, right? That is your body's way of breaking down food with saliva. It moistens the food. It contributes enzymes to the food that break it down, make you able to digest it and absorb it into your body. And it also dissolves food molecules. And that's important because that's how we get our taste activated. The saliva activates the taste buds. So very important to chew your food thoroughly, let the saliva moisten your food. Try not to down something to drink right with that bite of food, and allow your taste buds to taste it. Little fact here too is that your taste buds are new every 2 weeks or so. So if there's something that you're trying to integrate into your lifestyle, like maybe eating some more vegetables, expanding your nutrient profile with something, there is such a thing as developing a taste for it. It's a real thing. So start to integrate little bits of broccoli into something. I know, that sometimes that texture can be off a little bit, but saliva is going to help you get those tastes into your palate and into your profile. All right. So once you have chewed up your food adequately till it's cake batter consistency, I'm going to keep on reminding you to do that. And you swallow your food, it's on its trip to the stomach. Now, a lot of times we will picture our stomach as a cauldron. In fact, in the picture here, it does show more like a cauldron type structure. And in all reality, our stomach is not a cauldron sitting there waiting for things to be dropped into it. It is more like a whoopee cushion. So it's flat. Some of us wish it was a little flatter sometimes, but anyway, as it fills up, it stretches. And as that food fills your stomach, it sends signals to your body to form hydrochloric acid. And that acid is really important. It gets a bad rap, but it's so vitally important to digestion that getting rid of it or decreasing it is actually hazardous to your health. So that process of getting your stomach content down to the right acid level takes about 45 minutes, and it's key for protein digestion. That 45 minutes actually gets extended once we're past the age of 40. So those of us in that age group over the age of 40, it takes a little bit longer for that protein digestion to come into full effect. So again, just solidifying the reason to eat slowly, chew your food thoroughly, eat in a calm, quiet environment. We're going to talk about that again down the line. But 45 minutes is that time frame. Something to keep in mind if you have something stressful coming up. You need to do a presentation in front of a large audience. You need to run a race. You need to do something that is going to kind of shut down digestion for a short period of time. You probably don't want to have a really heavy meal right before that because you're probably going to feel a little yucky. It's going to sit there longer than it even should. It might even decide to pass through a little faster than it should because it's sitting there, or it might come back up. So right before big stressful things, try to avoid a big heavy meal. So once we're in the stomach, gastric acid, it takes a little bit of work to get down to the right acid level. Again, very important, but once food's in the stomach, that pH is dropping with the production of the hydrochloric acid. That gastric acid is killing harmful bacteria. So Another thing that we've probably become a little bit too keen of, especially in the past year, is over sanitizing every single thing. And I know that that's kind of a big deal, but your food shouldn't be like heavily laden with chemicals, because that's going to cause an issue. Our stomach acid is meant to kill that off, if there's certain bacteria. I know we think lettuce might kill us sometimes with the outbreaks of like salmonella and things like that, but generally speaking, our bodies can handle a certain amount of that, as long as we have appropriate acid in our stomach. The mucosal lining, we'll hear about that as well. That becomes a big deal. And if you're experiencing heartburn or indigestion symptoms, there is a large chance that your mucosal lining is interrupted, and we need to address that, because reducing the acid is not going to fix the mucosal lining issue, the underlying issue that's causing that to happen. And like I mentioned before, that food in the stomach needs to become acid to travel further in digestion and for you to be able to absorb the right things from your food. So what happens if your pH doesn't drop enough? Now, there are multiple reasons why your pH might not drop. I can tell you that it is like worldwide, less than 1% of the world creates too much acid in their stomach. We often hear about acid reducers, proton pump inhibitors, H2 blockers, things like that. When those were created, they were never meant for people to be on for a long period of time. They were meant, in fact, the manufacturers and the packaging all even state this, like I believe 6 to 8 weeks is maybe the tops. And there's reasons for that. So if your doctor has prescribed those for something that you're going through, of course, by all means, you should take it for that length of time, with their guidance, with the goal of being able to get off of that medication, because that medication is actually preventing you from digesting your food properly. It will lead to side effects. There is no question at all that it will. So for short periods of time, it's fine. They do their job. They allow your stomach to heal. But if you haven't addressed the underlying issue of healing up that mucosal lining, you haven't really done, what you need to do. So you shouldn't only be doing the H2 blockers or the proton pump inhibitors, things like that. You need to be doing something to support that mucosal lining to be regrown along the way. And that's part of what we specialize here at Alo Health. So if that doesn't drop, if that pH doesn't drop appropriately, it interferes with your natural defenses. Again, you can get some of those bacterias finding their way in and kind of wreaking havoc. It can lead to H. pylori, which, for anybody that has experienced that is not pleasant. It can be really, really a long road to recovery, but there are ways of getting rid of that. It will interfere with your digestion, specifically to protein, but other things as well. And if your pH doesn't drop, it can be a precursor to food sensitivities and even food allergies, because your immune system has to become involved. We'll get that question here a lot about, do we do food allergy or food sensitivity testing? And we do not. The reasons why, we do not do that is because it usually is not the food's fault. It is usually something to do with the stomach lining. So we address that. And we can always talk to you, more specifically about issues that you may be having with certain foods. Sometimes a short elimination of those foods is in order, but usually it doesn't mean forever, unless it's a food allergy, of course. Also people who tend to have issues with heartburn, chronic like indigestion after eating, bloating, things like that, and there is that interruption in that digestive process, inflammation is going to take place. You'll have white blood cells released, and that's the immune system doing what the immune system does. Your immune system, once involved, creates some antibodies, and that's the lasting part, that's the memory part to specific foods. Again, it may not be long lasting if you heal that mucosal lining up, But what happens if you don't do something to nourish that mucosal lining? You may eliminate that food. Let's say it's tomatoes or something like that. You may eliminate it because of a food sensitivity test saying that it's in like the red zone. But 70 to 90 days later, when you have another test done, foods that you have been ingesting will show up on that list. Tomatoes may not anymore because you haven't been taking them in. There hasn't been that immune response, but other foods are going to show up and you're going to be like, oh my goodness, what am I going to eat now? Because seldom do people go back to the food that they thought they were really sensitive to before. They just keep on having to eliminate more and more foods. And eventually it leads to nutrient deficiencies. You're not absorbing B vitamins from your food. You end up having to take a ton of supplements. And to be honest, I might be a really bad business person. I don't want to sell you tons and tons of supplements forever. I want to get you down to a digestive enzyme only. I really believe you should get most of your nutrients through your food sources. Once in a while, we need to add a little something in if our immune system's challenged, if we're under a little more stress, mechanical, emotional, or nutritional for some reason. So for short periods of time, you may need to supplement with some things. Vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, those things come to mind, especially over the past year. But again, not everybody needs to do that. All right. So after the food leaves your stomach, it enters the small intestine. Now there are lots of little parts in there. I'm not gonna get into the fine details of that because I don't think you need an A&P lesson today. But hormones are activated, signaling the body to release certain things from the pancreas, the liver, the gallbladder. That has to do with fat and proteins being absorbed into the body. So again, if we've broken down that digestion beforehand and it hasn't been broken down per se, if you're not actually breaking down the proteins, the sugars, the fats, we can't get to the absorption part. We need to ingest fat. Fat does not make us fat, by the way. We need to ingest fat because it leads to hormone production, leads to our brain function, our nerve function, all of those things. So we need to ingest fat, we need to absorb fat. It's used by our body. We also need to absorb and get protein, obviously, for repair and for our everyday functions. Excess sugars tend to be kind of those bad guys. Excess sugars taking in or not being able to digest them so they're broken down appropriately, they will change your bowel movements. And some of you know what I'm talking about. And it can be either way. It can be like the irritable bowel sort of thing. It can be irritable bowel with diarrhea. It can be irritable bowel with constipation. It can be both. And you just never know which way you're going. And also I mentioned before, vitamins, minerals, water absorption into the cell. That's very, very important. And the small intestine takes the lead in those functions. All right. So then we go on to the large intestine. So stomach, small intestine, large intestine, that's where we have our microbiome balance. We hear all about that, lots of like probiotic talk in the world. And again, not everybody needs to be on a probiotic. Sometimes it's helpful, helps with regularity, things like that. But in the large intestine, where bacteria and parasites, yes, we all have some sort of parasite load all the time. We just keep it in balance because that's what our body is made to do. Excess protein that's not digested. So again, it's not broken down the right way. It's in too big of pieces. That will feed bacteria and parasites in your gut, and not the good ones. The bad guys get out of control. So when bacteria and or parasites get out of control, it can create a whole bunch of symptoms that are not pleasant, as you can imagine. They will release toxins into your body. And those toxins can cause, like I said, all sorts of havoc. You can have pain in your joints. You can have brain fog. You can have all these different things going on. Again, not only bacteria and parasites are in that intestine, but the fungus and the yeast. And you may hear like that word candida. We think about candidas I mean, it's the cause of a lot of issues with people. Again, fibromyalgia, like rheumatoid arthritis. Some people even say fungus is the cause of some cancers and things like that. And there's a lot of research in that. Fungus and yeast will feast on excessive sugar. So again, if you're not breaking down and absorbing the right kinds of sugar in your body, or if you're taking in too much processed sugar or refined sugars, it's going to feed yeast and fungus and lead to some very unpleasant symptoms. Bacteria, parasites, fungus, yeast, they all will lead to inflammation in the body, like we talked about, arthritis type things, fibromyalgia. And when we try to bring them back into balance, like cleaning out the fungus and yeast, clearing out bacteria and parasites that are out of balance, they fight back. So many of you may have heard that it's going to get a little bit worse before it gets better. That's where that comes into play. So again, really important to work with somebody who can guide you through and reassure you, because you don't want to give up. You don't want to go back to square one if you've started this process. And you want to get over this and through this process as well. All right. So inadequate digestion leads to rotting or putrefaction in the bowel, and that leads to bowel toxicity. Not fun at all. When food particles are not digested well, they will sit in the gut, and some people get bloating, gas, but they will lead to inflammation, again, fibromyalgia, and sometimes food is broken down but not small enough. So food particles that are digested well enough to pass through the gut wall and into the bloodstream, but not small enough to be used by the body for energy, they lead to the immune response. And that immune response is that inflammation. You may have heard buzzwords like cytokine storm, things like that. That's part of it as well. Can lead to systemic inflammation, fibromyalgia, again, often diagnosed after a long period of time of this. And that's a big deal, because that is a big deal diagnosis that can overtake your life, your emotions. It can really take over your ability to live your best life and move and be active. And also can lead to depression, anxiety, and things like that. And nobody needs that. Ain't nobody got no time for that. So, poop. I'll say this a lot, and it always comes back to poop. We talk about poop a lot here at Alo. I talk about poop a lot at home. Pretty much a common conversation, even at the dinner table. It's because that's just how life is when you have a house of boys and then a digestive health specialist. Why not, right? So, constipation is defined as less than one bowel movement a day. Yes, you should be pooping every single day. You eat every day, you should poop every day. And it can be kind of an uncomfortable conversation. Sometimes we'll use humor to get over that, but some people, it's not very funny. If you haven't pooped, you feel like crap, no pun intended, right? But stool left in the intestines and the colon rots. It sends toxins back to the liver continuously. You have to continuously detox that. You can't just have it sitting in there and not affect your body. So it's sending toxins back to the liver to be detoxed continuously. And, you know, we live in Wisconsin. We have packers, we have tailgating, we have brewers, we have the consumption of alcoholic beverages, sometimes a little bit too much. And what does that do? It dehydrates you, leading to more constipation. It adds more taxing things to your liver to take care of, and it's a vicious cycle. So again, increased stress on the body, increased stress on your digestive system, decreased ability to absorb nutrients. When you're under stress, you need more nutrients and you create more waste. But if you're not getting rid of it, it's a vicious circle. So comes back to poop. You got to be pooping. So things to watch for. And this is not an all-inclusive list, of course, because different things come up all the time. But if you're having pain, headaches, joint pain, heartburn, indigestion, bloating, gosh, I sound like a Pepto commercial or something like that, but you know, these are all symptoms having to do with the digestive system. Other things you may not think about as symptoms of digestive stress are anxiety, irritability. You can always tell if someone hasn't pooped in a few days, they're irritable. They're just, yeah. Anyway, if you're one of those people, you want to get that taken care of. Restlessness, insomnia, muscle weakness, inability to concentrate, that brain fog. There is a big component to the gut with that. Fatigue, PMS, impotence. Just the list can go on and on. If you have rashes, they could be signs that your digestion is just not working well enough. But there's hope and there's good news, because there is definitely a way to overcome those symptoms naturally. Of course, I do recommend that you get checked over by your medical doctor, healthcare practitioner. If you have something of concern, make sure you're cleared that way, make sure there's nothing big bad going on, but know that there are other ways of helping clear the constipation. It doesn't always mean you have to be on some heavy laxatives or anything like that, but sometimes that is a short-term fix. But let's get at the underlying causes of those things. All of these things indicate nutritional deficiency, and it could be you're not taking enough of those things in. It could be you're not digesting appropriately. It could be that you're taking in too much of something, whether it be maybe you're taking in extra protein through the form of protein powders and shakes and supplements that your body can't handle, and that's adding stress. Could be you're taking in too many processed carbohydrates. That sugar content is too much for you to handle, or you're not able to digest and absorb it to use it for energy, and it's going to add stress to your life. And then it could be you're not eliminating appropriately, so those things build up. There are some simple steps we can follow, and this is a nice little relief that it's pretty simple, and these are free. So first and foremost, eat in a calm, quiet environment. Probably not the best thing to have like power meetings during your lunch. Of course, hopefully this has been somewhat relaxing and eye-opening for you, and I haven't stressed you out too much if you're eating your lunch. So calm, quiet, turn the news off. Just turn the news off anyway, because it's usually pretty stressful. We don't need that in our lives. So calm, quiet environment, chewing your food thoroughly. I cannot even emphasize this enough. You need to be chewing until it's cake batter consistency before you swallow. Don't wash it down. In fact, try not to drink a lot of fluids throughout your meal. You can sip, but don't wash your food down. The consumption of vegetables. Okay, so I sound like I'm like the food Nazi. Like, you need to get your vegetables in. It's just so important. And you're eating food. You need to eat food. I would much rather you become well and have a better wellness journey through the use of the food that you're eating than having to take a ton of supplements to fill in the blanks. Again, maybe not a great business model, but it's sustainable. You have access to food. So vegetables, at least 3 servings a day. If you don't get 3 servings, 3 1-cup servings of vegetables in your life a day, that is number one. Start there, start now, start today. Aim for 5, but let's start with baby steps at 3. And again, making sure that you're chewing that food very thoroughly is vital. If you can eliminate processed foods. Now, I know I live in the real world. I have teenage boys and non-teenage boys. So convenience. I mean, sometimes you're on the go. Sometimes you just don't feel like cooking, or maybe all the time you don't feel like cooking. There are foods that are prepared ahead of time that have decreased the amount of processing. I mean, if you need a frozen dinner, look for the non-GMO sign. That's a great thing. Watch your sugar intake. Again, some foods that you think, my gosh, there's no sugar in this. There are when you look at the labels. So, go through looking at the label a little bit. Baby steps. I don't expect you to, go home and throw out everything right away. But baby steps to eating better, integrate more fresh into your life. If it grew, it's probably better for you. If it grew, you know, out of the ground, or and I'm not a vegetarian. If you are, that's fine. We definitely need to make sure you're getting enough protein in. But if it grew, it's most likely better than if it came from a factory. And digestive enzymes. Now, I talk about that here and there throughout the presentation. I really truly believe everybody should be taking a nice high quality digestive enzyme every time they eat food, because our food supply within, you know, over the past 100 years is just not what it used to be. There's a lot of genetic modification that has gone on. There is a lot of just shortcuts that have been made. Foods have been stripped of their digestive enzymes and some of their nutrients. They add nutrients back in, but they can't add enzymes back in because the food would not have a good shelf life. So taking a digestive enzyme along with your meals can really make a difference in how well you're able to digest, absorb, and eliminate. Now you can set up a consultation here at Alo Health to get especially catered enzymes. We also have ones that are considered more over the counter, and they are total digestion, and then we have a total digestion very chewable. So those are options for you. Anybody can purchase those, of course. I haven't really seen a digestive enzyme that I don't like. So if you are taking one right now, whether it's our brand or a different one, by all means, keep taking that with your food. But if you really want a specialized approach, I really encourage you to give us a call here at Alo. And like I mentioned, if there is something that you have a question about, you know, you can just ask Alo. We do free, no obligation 15-minute phone consults. I am here in Appleton, right in the same building as Draft Gastropub. Kristen has now launched our Escanaba, Michigan site. And so if you know someone, or if you are up in the UP, we definitely can hook you up with Alo in the UP. So here at Alo, we do specific digestive enzyme support, specialized wellness support. We introduced pulsed electromagnetic field therapy at the end of December. We'd love to talk more about that. And then we also have free Facebook page and a Facebook group called Wellness with Alo, where you can get tips on wellness. You can exchange recipes, usually nice clean recipes. Those are free resources. So feel free to stalk us on there or give us a call. You can sign up through our website, www.alohealthllc.com for a consult, a free 15-minute consult, or if you're interested in remote or in-person services, we are open. And there's our contact information. I am going to unmute. I think I'm going to unmute. We'll see everybody. And if I can figure that out. And get everybody able to ask questions. And okay, clearly I need to get better at seeing my screen here. You guys are probably like Zoom fatigue. Everybody has this, like learn how to use this a little better. And I'm just gonna, where's my button to unmute everybody and to stop sharing my screen? There we go. That's where I needed to go. I'm going to. Oh, thanks, Chris. Yes, you can unmute yourself. So if anybody has a question, please don't hesitate to ask a question on there or unmute. I think you can unmute yourselves. I love questions, and let's see. So if anybody has a question and you're not able, I don't hear anybody. Feel free to raise your hand or type it in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer. You can also email us here at info@alohealthllc.com with questions.
Can you explain a little bit about why you don't recommend drinking with a meal? I feel like that was such a natural thing that I've done all my life, so it's such a weird concept to think about changing.
Great question. And I love that question because, like I said, you can drink with your meal. Just don't gulp. Like, I wouldn't drink a full-on glass like throughout the meal. There's a couple reasons for that. For one, we have a tendency to wash down our food a little bit too much. And while it's really not going to necessarily dilute your stomach enzymes or the enzymes in your food, it can kind of artificially fill your stomach up. Because remember, I've talked about how your stomach is not a cauldron, it's a whoopee cushion. And as you're eating, if you're filling it up with liquids, it's stretching out faster than it would if you were filling it with food. And I know, like, there's a myth out there, kind of like one of those common weight loss myths, that if you drink a lot during your meal, you won't eat as many calories. Really not true. For one thing, you're artificially filling your stomach. So chances are within an hour after eating, you're going to be hungry again because you haven't taken in enough nutrients for your body. But you're also going to possibly have more of a bloated feeling. You may, if you're drinking something other than water, you could be absorbing like a lot more sugar faster, and spiking your blood sugar a little faster. So that is a big component of it. But we find most of the time is people are not eating enough food during their meal, and then they end up snacking more between meals, which then leads to more episodes of insulin release, which is actually what causes you to gain more weight. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right. Like I mentioned, I'm recording this so I can send it on along for a link later on today for people that want to rewatch it or take notes. Again, encourage any questions. I also want you guys to know that for those of you, who are on the Appleton Park and Recs page, we do some free webinars with them as well, about once every other month. Some of them, they've been virtual for the past several months, but we will be in person again coming up, I believe starting in May, we're going to be in person again. So take a look at that for some more resources. And then I look forward to doing some more lunch and learns with you guys as well. If there are particular topics that you really want more information on or want to dive deeper into something, let me know. I would love to put something together. So, all right. Well, if you don't have any other questions, I really appreciate you guys paying attention today, joining me, taking time out of your schedule. It's so nice. Can't wait till we can be back in person, and hope you have a beautifully blessed day. Enjoy that sunshine and the heat wave. I expect to see, people out in shorts and ride motorcycles in no time. So have a great day. Thanks so much. See you soon.